What is up? We are live again. Welcome, friends. This is Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. This is episode 17. And I want to begin the broadcast by saying, Doyers, we're going to the World Series. And the Chargers beat the Raiders today. This is Mighty 1090 Sports Radio. And we have Philip Rivers on the line. Not really. Episode 17. Today is October 15th, 2017. And thank you for joining me, guys. Some guys work on cars. Other guys watch baseball. I like to podcast and josh around on the interwebs. And today, if you're willing to stick around, I got a great show lined up for you. I'm feeling a little silly. Got a little black coffee in me. And I wanted to talk about this. The electronic leash. The title of the podcast today is Our Selfishness and Addiction to Distraction is Destroying Our Culture. So, what do I mean by that? Well, let me begin by saying there's a lot of threats out there. We talk about North Korea. We talk about... Dude, I feel so awkward in this chair. I'm sorry, guys. I just need to calibrate and get situated. I'm a little excited for the Doyers. I'm a little excited. The Chargers won today. I don't know if I mentioned that. The LA Chargers beat the Raiders. It's always a good day. Even if there's no more Charger fans, I think me and 19 other people like the Chargers. So for us, 20 of us, we're really happy today that we beat the Raiders because everybody in San Diego doesn't like the Chargers. And nobody else likes the Chargers except for me and 19 other people. So, anyways, back to the podcast. Selfishness and addiction is destroying our culture. So we talk about North Korea. We talk about Trump and his racism that's going to hurt us all. We talk about earthquakes. We talk about super volcanoes. We talk about Yellowstone. We talk about a nuclear-armed Iran. We even talk about budget deficits and the economic threat. But I'm here to argue that our selfishness and the fact that we're so darn distracted is destroying us, destroying our culture in the process. So, we are so distracted, I believe, that it's robbing us of the most important things in life. And I'm going to begin by saying I think this is the source of most of it. The average person, at least the millennial age, I should say, spends 135 minutes a day on Facebook. That's approximately a little over 2 hours on Facebook alone. You're on Facebook right now, so we're a part of the statistic. I'm on Facebook right now. These studies are saying that's up from 126 minutes from last year, and I looked at the chart and it's growing steadily. Millennials check their phone 157 times per day. That's about 10 times an hour. Recent Bank of America Mobile Consumer Report said that 71% of people sleep with their phone either at the nightstand and bed, and 3% actually hold it in their hand while they're sleeping. 35% said the very first thought they have when they wake up in the morning is their phone, compared to 10% who think of their significant other. We're bombarded anywhere between 4,000 and 10,000 messages every single day. I don't know if you guys ever thought through this, but Adidas, bam. Facebook, probably in front of you. Just look around. Blue. Kirkland Signature Water. I'm looking at my Knox audio filter on my microphone. I'm looking at this Lenovo computer with an Intel sticker inside. I mean, we're constantly bombarded. And I found a little article that I thought illustrated this perfectly, and it's the story of a guy who read this study and wanted to experience it for himself and see really how many messages am I being exposed to every single day. And forgive me, I thought it was already up and running, but it's not. While that's getting up and running, researchers surveyed 2,000 people and studied the brain activity of 112 others using what they call electroencephalograms. And the average human attention span has fallen 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds in 2016. And the craziest part about that, guys, is that the average attention span of a goldfish is 9. So we actually have a shorter attention span than freaking goldfish. We're going to go ahead and skip the plan because it's not loading. So I think the point's clear, guys, is that we're constantly getting distracted every single day. No, it's actually gonna load right now. This is from Red Crow Marketing. How many ads do we see in a day? And this guy talks about his journey waking up in the morning, and by the time he finishes breakfast, he actually quits because he's getting hit so many. So he says, on my test day, I woke up in the morning to my Sony radio alarm clock, heard about 14 ads on my local station before I opened my eyes and hit the snooze on my Sony clock. I used my Panasonic TV and Dish Network receiver remotes, noticed a Kenwood receiver and Toshiba DVD player, and watched and listened to 46 TV commercials as I got going. I got dressed in my Fruit of the Loom undershirt, Big Dog shirt, Wrangler jeans, and Nike shoes. 11 brand advertisements are within eyesight in the closet, and I'm not even digging for them. I opened up my pantry and counted 214 food brand labels, all colorful and professionally created. I get my box of Kellogg's for my Jersey-made milk and count 62 product brands. I open a can of Folgers coffee to brew in my Mr. Coffee Maker. I've gotten around 487 ad exposures, and I haven't even finished breakfast. So guys, we're super distracted. 126 minutes, up to 135 minutes a day on Facebook. We're checking our phone 10 times an hour, 157 times a day. We're sleeping with our phones. We're losing our attention span. We're super distracted. I'm super distracted. This thing is an electronic leash. I just told somebody at the store today, I wish I had a flip phone, and she looked at me like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? We live in an American culture that celebrates self and promotes putting ourselves first. The second point I wanted to argue is that worse than Yellowstone, worse than the nuclear threats from North Korea, and I'm being dead serious, along with distraction, selfishness is destroying us and destroying our culture and society. So every day, these messages that I talked about, these 4,000 to 10,000 messages, what are they saying? They're trying to get us to buy products, right? And in order to get us to buy products, they need to make us feel like we're lacking, and their product will fill that need. I actually do marketing professionally. I understand this. I live in this space. So I see what's at play. We're always being told, well, you'll be cooler if you just drive this car, or you'll look better if you're wearing this shirt or these clothes. So they're constantly messaging to us, you. It's consumerism is fueled by this promotion of selfishness, satisfying yourself, the pleasure that is available to you. You know, one of the ways that we're seeing this in society, if you guys have ever been on the road, people are super impatient. You know, just the way I talked about last episode, you know, with road rage, you know, people are tailgating, people aren't waiting, people are cutting people off. There's no more decorum, there's no more respect, there's no more courtesy on the road, if you haven't noticed. And it has to do with this lack of patience. Me first, get out of my way, I'm more important than everybody on the road. Move. Lack of patience, that sounded weird. Lack of patience at the grocery store. I don't know if you guys have ever been in line at the grocery store, and I'm fortunately probably the person that pisses everybody off at the grocery store, because when I stand at the register, I like to find out if, and I can already imagine people are getting mad at me and they're not even behind me at the grocery store, but I'll ask the clerk, hey, you know, I think that that dozen eggs was $1.19, but you rang it up for $2.99. And you usually get into this usually at the store. I don't do it on purpose. I've just wasted so many times at the store, wasting money, thinking I was buying stuff on sale, getting into my car to find out later at the receipt that I didn't get the sale price. So I make it a point to, reconcile this with the grocery clerk. It's an important thing to me. And I could hear the, oh, God. People are getting really impatient. And they want to let you know you're wasting their time, you're getting in their way. We bring this consumer mentality to our relationships. I read a post from a prominent blogger a couple months ago, and he was talking about marriage and talking about the divorce rate. And one of the reasons he was arguing that the divorce rate is so much higher now than it was a few decades ago was because back then there was less of this self-worship and this self-centeredness, and people truly believed that marriage was sacrifice and giving of yourself over to the other person. And I think that today, and what this blogger was arguing is that we go into the marriage, into the relationship with your girlfriend or your boyfriend with a consumer mentality of, how is this person going to make me happy? Because I'm in this for myself. I picked this person. They need to make me happy and meet my needs in order for this relationship to be a success, which is actually the opposite of a successful marriage. If you talk to anyone who's had successful marriages, one of the common threads is not, I was only thinking about myself, but the common thread is that they were serving the other person and sacrificing for that other person, and going into this where, less about themselves and more about the other person. And not just in our romantic relationships, whether that be a boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, wife, but even in friendships. A lot of times friendships end because they're constantly looking at, how is this friend going to benefit me? I don't know if you've ever been in a friendship where the person seems to only be interested in being your friend out of what they can get out of you. And unfortunately, that's very true, especially in 2017 America. A Go Banking Rate survey recently said that 50% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. And that to me is an indication of selfishness, because they're only thinking of today. They're not thinking about future generations. They're not thinking about their children. They're not thinking about anything else but meeting their needs. I believe it's a indication or sign of selfishness when you're not even saving any money, but just spending it for the day, right? The Federal Reserve recently released a report saying that 44% of Americans cannot even cover an unexpected $400. An unexpected expense of $400. And 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Again, I would argue that that's just a lack of selfishness. I deserve it. I need it. I need the newest iPhone. I need the newest whatevs. Cheers. I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, but it's really weird to know that people are watching you, but you can't see them. Like, you guys, I can't see you, but you can see me and everything that's going on. You guys are nosy. Stop it. I'm just kidding. No, thanks for joining me, guys. This is brought to you by PrepSave.com. Go to PrepSave.com right now and get prepared for the upcoming economic collapse and natural disasters. PrepSave.com. That's my plug. What are the consequences of distraction? What's the trade-off? Okay, so we're super distracted. We're checking our phone 10 times an hour, according to the recent Facebook study. Well, what's the trade-off? Well, German 2012 study said that the more time we spend on our phones and on social media, the worse we feel. They studied a sample size of people, and what this German study discovered or concluded was that the more time we spend on social media, the worse we feel about ourselves. FOMO, fear of missing out, comparison, envy. Oh, she's so cute, that dress. She looks so good. I don't look like that. Or, dang, that guy's having fun. His life is yachts and sea-doos and vacations, and man, my life sucks. And I think that's what social media has done. This envious comparison of, everybody's putting their, I'm sorry, I hit the table. Everybody's putting their best foot forward. Everybody's creating this false representation of what their lives look like. Not everybody, but I would say Most people. Come on, you all know that you got your best. I got my best photo on Facebook. Okay. A 2012 University of Bergen study showed that researchers linked social media use to the reward center of the brain that's associated with preservation of social reputation, whereas another preliminary study found compulsive internet use may induce changes in some brain reward pathways that are similar to drug addiction. So I was talking about the trade-offs, so I got a little ahead of myself, forgive me. But what this is illustrating is that we're about as addicted to our phones as we are addicted to cocaine and heroin. It's the same pathway in our brain, according to some of these studies that have come out since 2012. Facebook is designed to suck us in. I was reading from an author who actually wrote a book on why is Facebook so successful, and one of the things that he concluded was that they're playing us on the pain of boredom. That anytime there's an idle moment, we're at a red light, we're standing in line at the grocery store. Oh, I have a little red. Oh, I have something, a message. Oh, it's somebody's birthday. Happy birthday, person who I haven't seen in 12 years. It's this constant, needing to stay stimulated, kind of like drugs. People that are addicted to drugs are constantly looking for that next high. And I guess Facebook is similar in that it fills that constant need, that constant addiction for stimulation. So anyways, going back to what I wanted to say. So, okay, we understand that we're distracted. We understand that we're selfish. So why did I title this podcast, It's Destroying Us and It's Destroying Our Culture? Well, we're not communicating in real life. A lot of people believe or have bought the lie that if we're connected electronically or digitally to our friends, that's the same as having friendship. It's not having friendship. Sitting across the table, having coffee with a friend, looking at them in the eye and saying, "How you been, man?" Looking them in the eye, being in the flesh, having that intimacy, whether that be a friend or just getting to know someone or a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, it's so much more powerful to have that intimate, physical, real world connection. That's real friendship. That's real relationship. And I believe that we believe this lie that we have friendship because we have this digital relationship with them. But the reality is that people are feeling more isolated than ever before, but yet connected than ever before, because we were never designed to have electronic relationships. I believe that as humans, we were wired to be relational. And I would argue that probably think about the most you've ever laughed or the most fun you've ever had. Was it staring at this? Or was it looking at that person or being with someone at Magic Mountain or being at their house, talking and laughing? Of course it was when you're with them in person. That's proof that we are happier when we're having real physical, intimate relationships, not this digital communication. And for those of us that have kids, it pains me to see moms out in the playground, while their 2-year-old is running around. They're only going to be small for so long. So parents, I implore you, please put your stupid phone down. Pay attention to your kid. I'm as guilty. Sometimes I'll catch myself where my daughters will be running around me and playing Papa, Papa, and I'll be too busy on my phone looking at something stupid. And I'm missing out because in 10, 15 years, I'm not going to be regretting, I wonder what I missed on Facebook back in 2017. I'm going to regret, man, I wish I would have just drank in all that time that I had with my kids. Just recently, my brother-in-law was talking to our family, and he kind of came out and said, "Hey guys, I just want to apologize. I haven't really been present. I know that I'm connected with you digitally, but if we're physically together on our phones, we're not really together. We're not really present. How many times have you been at a dinner table or been around people and you're physically, technically with them, but you're not present with them because you're paying attention to your phone?" And that's killing relationships. I think there's a term called phubbing. I may be wrong, but there was an article recently and I've seen it. I don't know if you've ever been to a restaurant. One time I was at a restaurant and I see these couples sitting across from each other, and they're all on their phone, and I'm like, man, why don't you put your phone down and talk? It's a time waster. I actually work with a lot. What I do for a living, I work with business owners, and I've heard this multiple times where I actually, ironically, sell Facebook ads. So I'm a big sellout, right? Big hypocrite. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. You tell me. They say, I'll bring up Facebook to the business owner, and they'll say, oh, yeah, I pay my employees to be on Facebook. The point they're making is that so many people go to work and waste their time on phones. Have you been to work when you're supposed to be working? Of course you have. And you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're checking your emails, you're on ESPN checking sports scores, you're text messaging, whatnot, YouTube, maybe worse things. I don't know. But the reality is that the economy is probably getting drained. Businesses are losing money. We're wasting time when we could be productive. Texting while driving. How many accidents are happening now because they're on their phone? And God help me, I'm the worst. I'll just confession time like last episode. I'm awful, man. And I need to get off the phone when I drive. I'm busy during the day and I feel like I got to stay productive. And again, my excuse is, well, this is business. So I'm checking voicemails, I'm responding to text messages, and this is me, you know, sometimes. And man, it's bad and I need to stop. So if you ever see me down the road, honk at me and say, hey, get off your phone. Remember episode 17? Stupid. When you're on your phone or when you're distracted, you're not attuned to your surroundings. You're not seeing the needs of others. I've seen so many men like not hold doors for elderly women or families because they're on their phone. When we're not present, we're not able to see the needs that are around us. And you'll be surprised how many people are crossing your path that are suffering from depression, or maybe were said hello to you, or maybe was thinking that you were going to open the door for them, but you were too distracted wishing your middle school friends happy birthday. The Institute for European Environmental Policy came out with a report recently saying that living near nature makes people less depressed, more active, increases in self-esteem and mental well-being. So what are we missing out on? What's the trade-off? Well, we're not looking up at the stars at night. We're not looking around at the, like out here in Colorado, at the beautiful mountains, and now it's fall time here in Colorado. And it's just gorgeous, man. I moved here for the beauty, and people are missing it because they're on their phones. A 2002 University of Illinois study says the top 10% of people with the highest scores for personal happiness. They did a personal happiness study. And the top 10% of those people that were in this study, what they found was the most salient characteristics shared by those students who were very happy, showed the fewest signs of depression, were those that had the strongest ties to friends and family and commitment to spending time with them. I don't know. I think America was a happier place 1917, 1930. I think it was even happier maybe in the 40s and 50s. I think people are really stressed out. I mean, the suicide rates show us. The depression rates show us. Many of you guys are familiar with Aldous Huxley, A Brave New World, in George Orwell's 1984. Dystopian novels of the future, how we will end up, right? Prophetic works, some would argue. And it's almost like two schools of thought. You know, there's one group that George Orwell's of 1984 is saying they're going to ban the books, they're going to hide the truth, and them, you know, the oppressors, the shadow government, or whomever, the people who are working behind the scenes to take over society. Again, this is George Orwell's fictional account. Whether you believe this is happening or not, I'm not here to discuss that today. But George Orwell argued that these folks that want to take control of society will convince the will not convince the population, but they will ban the truth, they will hide the truth, and they will use oppressive tactics to take control. Versus Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, similar dystopian novel, where he argued we'll amuse ourselves to death. That the desire for pleasure will be so pressing that we won't even care that we're going into the fire, that we're being drawn into tyranny, that we're going to take all of our freedoms and our family and everything that we hold dear to ourselves. We'll all lose it, and society will go into a new dark age because we amused ourselves with the doyers, with the Chargers, with Netflix, with Hulu, with Game of Thrones, with whatever it is that your distraction is. We all have them. Pornography, I mean, go down the list. Those distractions will bring us into bondage and tyranny. So that's my argument on the consequences of distraction. What's the trade-off? So now that leads me to, what are the consequences of selfishness? Well, very similar to distraction. Distraction actually feeds our selfishness. If we're selfish, we're not interested in paying attention to other people. We're just thinking about ourselves and our own pleasure. So this very distraction feeds all that selfishness. And as I mentioned earlier, scientific data and research shows that we are most happiest in relationships. And I wasn't able to find research because I didn't want to get on too late. It's already 11:30 here, but I would argue that when we give and when we're generous, we're happier. I don't know if you've ever been super generous where you really change somebody's life or like change their day even. You feel really good about yourself. You feel peace. You feel joy. Like joy that's very different from the happiness or the satisfaction that you get from satisfying yourself. You know, like think about a time where you just indulged yourself and you ate chocolate cake and got a massage or whatever that may look like. And the satisfaction that you experience from that versus seeing somebody's face light up because you just changed their week. You know, you just, you know, showed them that they had value or they were loved, or you gave them money because they were in need. You leave that experience a lot happier. And so I would argue that the consequence of selfishness is the true joy that we miss out on when we're being selfish, when we're only thinking about ourselves. Broken relationships, like I talked about earlier, you know, when we go into relationships with what is this person going to do for me? How is this person going to satisfy my needs? What we end up doing is the other person, you know, can give, but if they're not going to receive, they're going to burn out and the relationship's going to fall apart. And you're not getting the satisfaction and joy of sacrificially loving and giving into that other person. So the relationships fall apart. And I think that's why in society, this Tinder generation where, I don't know, I've never been on Tinder. Tinder came out after I got married. So what is that? Swipe to the right. If you keep going, ooh, she looked good. And it's just this instant like, who's looking good? Who do I want right now? And then we hang out, we get that adrenaline, we get that high. I don't know if anybody out there is dating right now. You know, a lot of times this dating almost becomes like a drug, like an addiction where, you know, the butterflies of meeting that new person and then you're hanging out with them and you keep that person while they're keeping that high going and that adrenaline. And then once the high goes away and that person makes you upset because they're human, or because they didn't meet your expectations, next you're back on Tinder swiping to the right again. So this consequence of selfishness in our relationships, I think, is resulting in a lack of joy. I mean, like I've repeated myself 3 or 4 times. Listen up. Just kidding. True happiness and true joy is in healthy relationships. You've seen the 100-year-old couple, you know, wrinkled with smiles, been married 60 plus years. They're happy. They've had hard times, but they made it. And I think that's what we all deep down desire, is that peace, that joy, that the true deep happiness. And we're looking for it in all the wrong places. You know, we're looking for it in all the wrong places because we're coming from a predisposition of selfishness, and we're so distracted. You know, we're fubbing. We're on our date, Tindering in front of our Tinder date that we got on Tinder, I guess, and stuff. The GDP, I think this is affecting our economy. A friend of mine just forwarded an opinion piece in the New York Times, and they were talking about, oh, by the way, if you guys are listening, go to YouTube and type in O'Keefe strikes again, New York Times, Pravda. New York Times is getting rocked right now. Save that for another issue, another episode. In this opinion article, and again, it's an opinion article, but it raises a fact that the gross domestic product per adult, which is typically a measurement of quality of life. So we see the highest GDP in first world countries, Germany, the UK, the United States, Japan. the GDP from the Great Depression to 12 years after increased tremendously and had a huge spike compared to the GDP 12 years after the 2007 crisis, projected by 2019 will have recovered less than the recovery after the Great Depression. So granted, our economy isn't as bad as it was after the Great Depression or during the Great Depression, but what economists are telling us is that the recovery is going to be much lower and much comparatively inferior to the recovery 12 years after the Great Depression. Now, why do we care? Why is that important? Well, we're not growing. We have what, I guess like 80 million millennials that are going to be coming into the job market over the next couple decades. If our economy is not recovering, what is this society going to look like for ourselves? What is this society going to look like for our kids? And what does this have to do with selfishness and with distraction? Well, the answer to that question is asking, well, why were they able to recover so well after the Great Depression? Back then, one of the things is that we didn't have a concentration of wealth in San Jose and Silicon Valley like we do today. Yes, we've had a lot of technological innovation, but it's ended up in the hands of a very small group of people. Mark Zuckerberg, all these clowns. After the Great Depression, we had small businesses, we had farms, we had a lot of self-reliant, independent people who were creating businesses, who were talking to their neighbors, involved in their communities. People, had to interact and engage. There wasn't electronic communication. If you wanted to speak to somebody, you had to physically be there. And that's the kind of society that existed post the Depression. And I would argue that's the reason why, things recovered so quickly. And on the reverse, that's the reason why we suck, why we're not improving our economy, because we're not generating wealth. We're not cooperating. In a healthy economy, there's a lot of cooperation. Wealth is getting concentrated into the hands of the few. The middle class has shrunk tremendously. So if we don't change our ways, we're going to lose everything. And if we're not building anything, if we're not talking to each other, if we're distracted and we continue to stay self-centered, this is going to come home to roost. And we already have the economic data. And my argument, and you could disagree with me, but I think that there's a link between slow recovery after the 2007 crisis comparative to the recovery after the Great Depression, a direct link to the fact that we are distracted and the fact that we are selfish. Because after the Great Depression, we were not distracted, we were not selfish, we were helping each other out, we were helping our neighbors, and we got out of it, and we built the greatest country with the largest middle class, arguably in world history, after World War II. So I'm going to end it at this, guys. What is the solution? Put your stupid phone down. Get a flip phone. I would love to have a flip phone. My company doesn't allow me to, but I mean, if I was like a chef or something, I would have a flip phone. For Pete's sakes. Start connecting with people in real life. I met this really cool guy today at the gym, and we're gonna meet up on Friday, and I'm gonna make a point to not have an electronic. He's not gonna be my friend on Facebook. Let me put it that way. And it's not gonna be a text message thing. It's gonna be, hey man, let's hang out. You wanna go? He plays basketball. Let's go play basketball. Let's go lift. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. I think the solution is going back to our great-grandparents or grandparents' generation, great-grandparents' generation, however old you are, connecting with people in real life, putting down the phone, which I think is a source of major distraction, and making a commitment to just connect with people and putting our phones down. That's it, guys. This was Counterculture, episode 17. Thanks for watching. My name is Aaron Lujan. You can find everything at aaronlujan.com. I'm on the YouTubes, I'm on the Twitters, I'm on the Gab. I don't know if you guys are hip to the Gab. There's gab.ai. It's a free speech platform rivaling Twitter. Twitter censoring lately. Podcast. This is a podcast. You guys are probably watching this. You may be watching this live, but this is actually really designed for the podcast. You can find it on iTunes. Stitcher, all the podcast players. That's it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Take care.